So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going through the AQA GCSE Maths Higher paper of June 2019, paper 2, which is the calculator paper. So let's get straight into this second paper from June 2019. So question 1 says circle the point that lies on the curve y equals x squared minus 4x plus 1. Now for this all we need to do is substitute the x ordinate and see if it gives us the y value. So if I substitute x equals minus 1 into this expression, I'm going to end up with 1 plus 4 plus 1, which equals 6. So it's not that one. For question the next one, if I substitute minus 1 again, do I get minus 4? No. Do I get minus 2? No. So the correct answer is minus 1, 6. For question 2, it says the height of a tree is 12 meters, correct to the nearest meter. Circle the error interval. Now, if it's to nearest meter, I divide that by 2, in which then I get 0.5. So what I want to do is 12 plus or minus 0.5. And which of those does it equate to? It's going to be the first one. Now, the reason why it's the first one is because with the upper value, it's always got to be less than. So that's why it's option 2 rather than any of the other options, because obviously it can equal the lower bound, but it can't equal the upper bound. For question 3, it says 2a is 5 times bigger than b. Circle the ratio of a to b. Now for this one, the correct answer is 5 to 2. And the reason for this is because you need 5 lots of a for it to be the equivalent of 2b. So that's why it's 5 to 2. For question 4, it says which of these represents the shaded area, and that's going to be A and B, which is the third option. Then moving on to question 5, which looks at loci. Now it says using a ruler and a compass, show the region inside the grid that is, and then the first condition is that it's got to be less than 4 centimeters from A and nearer to B than to C. Now for this, all we need to do is loci around a point. And for the second, what we then need to do is a perpendicular bisector. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to struggle to do a compass and a ruler bit of loci with this particular question, but hopefully what I will do is show you the steps on how we actually go about answering this question, and then you can then do it a lot more accurately. So the first thing we need to do is look at our first constraint, which is to draw a circle of 4 centimeters around point A. So again, I set my compass. I'm going to set it at 4 centimeters, and let me just make sure that that is going to be true. And then just do a little bit of editing in terms of getting this spot on, a little bit more, and then down. There we go. So that's my circle of 4 centimeters. Let me just label that. Now you don't need to label it, but if you were going to do it, then that's what you would need to do. So that distance there is 4 centimeters. The next thing I then need to do is draw a perpendicular bisector between B and C. Now for this, what you need to do is set your compass so that it's a distance that's more than half between B and C. The next thing you then do is put your pin on B, and you draw an arc, which I'm just going to use a different color, and it should look sort of between B and C. So it should look something that looks like this. Then you put the pin on C without adjusting the compass, and you do another arc like so. Now I can see that those two things aren't going to intersect, so let me just do that a little bit better. So for example, let's say it's like that, and then what you should notice is you should have 2 intersection points of the 2 arcs. So here I've got an intersection point here and an intersection point there. Then with a ruler, what I then need to do is, with a straight line, is join those 2 points up. So if I just do that, and then what I then want to do is extend it so it goes through the circle. Now the region R needs to be on the upside of the orange line, but also inside the circle. So my region R is going to be this here, and if I just colour that area in, it's basically all of this. Now with any construction question, it's really important that you do not rub out any of your construction lines. So don't rub out the circle, don't rub out your arcs, because obviously that's going to be counted towards your working out. Moving on to question 6, it says Beth drives 200 miles in 4 hours. She drives the first 18 miles at an average speed of 36 miles per hour. Work out the average speed of the rest of the journey. So the first thing we need to do is realise how long was that first stage. Now for this, what we're going to be using is distance speed time. So for the first stage, to work out the distance, the time is going to be equal to distance divided by speed, which is 18 divided by 36, which equals 0.5 hours. So then what I've then got to look at is how much distance is left. So for the average speed of the second stage, so speed of the second stage, then what I need to know the distance over the time. So the distance is going to be 200 minus 18, which is 182, and the time is going to be 4 hours. Take away the duration of the first stage, which is 0.5, which gives me 3.5. And then all I want to do is subtract those two numbers. So on the calculator, what I'm going to do is 182 divided by 3.5, and I get an answer of 52 miles per hour. Then looking at question 7, it says the diagram shows a rectangle ABDE and a right angle triangle with ABC. A to C is 17 centimeters and B to C is 8 centimeters, and we've got B to C to C to D in the ratio of 1 to 2, and the question is asking us to work out the area of the rectangle. Now for this, to work out the area of the rectangle, I need to know what the height and the length of that rectangle is. Now using this ratio here, I can see that if B to C is 8 centimeters, then C to D is going to be double that, so that's then going to be 16 centimeters. Now the next thing I then need to know, so all of this, the length of A to E is therefore going to be 24 centimeters. Now to work out A to B, what I need to use is Pythagoras. So if I just quickly draw the triangle on the side, so I've got 17, I've got 8, and I want to work out what this length here is. So to find the shorter side, I need to do long side squared, take away one of the other shorter side squares, give me x squared, and then just simply type that into my calculator. So 17 squared minus 8 squared gives me 225. So x squared equals 225, so x equals 15. Now obviously it does equal plus or minus 15, but because we're dealing with length, it's going to equal 15. So this simply is 15 centimeters. So then to work out the area of the rectangle, all I then need to do is 15 times 24. And again, just go for the calculator on this. So 15 times 24 equals 360. And there is my final answer. For question 8, it says on the axis, sketch the curve of y equals x cubed minus 2. You must show the coordinates of the y-intercept. Now, what we need to do here is this kind of combines graph shapes as well as graph transformations. Now, y equals x cubed basically looks like this. Actually, it doesn't look like that, so let me just correct that. So it basically looks like this. Now, if I'm going to subtract 2, then what that's going to do is shift it 2 places. So this crosses the origin of y equals x cubed. So minus 2 is basically going to move the graph down 2 coordinates. So what I'm going to find is at this point here, which is at minus 2, this is where the curve sort of has this, what we call a point of inflection. So that would be worth your 2 marks. You get 1 mark for the shape and then 1 mark for the correct intersection point of the y-axis at minus 2. Then looking at question 9, it says in a sport, injury time is added at injury time played at the end of a match. The table shows the injury time, T minutes, played in 380 matches. So question 9a says circle the 2 words that describe this data. Now because we're dealing with time, and basically if I just go through what each of these words are, so continuous are numbers that are any numbers within a given range. Discrete is that numbers can only be certain numbers within a given range. Obviously then we've got group data and we've got ungrouped data. Now the 2 options you should go for is continuous and grouped. Now the question 9b then says which interval contains the median. Well, if we've got 380 bits of data, we divide that by 2, then what I'm going to end up with is I end up with 150, and that's going to give me 190. So what I need to do is find out where is 190 along this data. So here I've got 59, and then the 190th person or game is going to be in this group here. So the interval is going to be 2 and 4. The next question then says what percentage of the matches had more than 6 minutes of injury time. So more than 6 is going to be here. So it's going to be including 45 and 12. So then to work this out, if I then do 45 plus 12, which is 57, 57 over 360, and because it wants the percentage, I multiply that by 100. So on the calculator, 57 divided by 380, and I've put 360, so let me just get rid of that. Multiply that by 100. And we get an answer of 15%. So looking at question 10, it says that x is an integer, so in other words a whole number, and we've got our two inequalities. Now for this, what we need to do is establish what are the possible values of x, and then the answer is going to be the numbers that appear in both sets. So for here, if we've got minus 4x is equal to 2, so the possible values that x can equal here are going to be minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1 and 2. Now for 2x plus 3 and 9, then again what I want to do is make x by itself in the middle, so I need to subtract 3 from both sides. So what I end up with is going to be minus 1 x and got an equal sign there, let's get rid of that, and 6. Now from this inequality, the possible numbers that x can equal are minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now what I want to do is highlight the numbers that appear in both lists. So I've got minus 1 in both lists, I've got 0 in both lists, I've got 1 and 2. So the answer to this particular question is going to be minus 1. Oh, don't know why I'm trying to write in highlighter there. Get rid of that. So it's going to be minus 1, 0, 1 and 2. Now if you wanted to be fancy and write it as an inequality, that's absolutely fine. So you can write your answer as like so. But as long as you've written those list of integers, then that's going to be absolutely fine. Now looking at question 11, it says that Joe and Kyle share the amounts of money in the ratio of 7 to n, and Joe gets 35% of the money. So for this one is relatively quite simple, if you can write down and start the question correctly, which I clearly have not done. So here we've got Joe and Kyle, and it's 7 to n. Now it says that Joe gets 35%, which means then Kyle must get 65%. And if I then simplify this ratio of 35 to 73, then what happens is that we're then going to get 7 to 13. So therefore n must equal 13. Moving on to question 12, it says that a biased coin is thrown 250 times. Circle the best estimate for the probability of getting a head. Now when you're working with relative frequency, to increase the sort of accuracy of the probability, you want to go for the maximum number of trials. So what I need to do is I need to work out this. So for this, what we then need to do is, well, the relative frequency is going to be 0.3, so then it's going to be our last option. Moving on to question 13, it says the amount spent on clothes by 40 boys and 40 girls in 1 month were recorded. The table shows the information about the amount spent by the boys. The mean for the girls was 35%. It says estimate the mean for the girls as a percentage of the mean of the boys. And this is worth 5 marks. So the first thing I need to do is work out the mean for the boys. And how do I do that? Well, I complete this table. So the midpoints, I work them out, so that's going to be 10, 30, 50 and 70. And then I then need to create my fx column. And so how do I do that? Well, I just simply multiply these two numbers together. I've got 210, 300, 270 and 220. Then all I need to do is add these numbers up, in which 9, 10 and 5 and 10, so I'll get 1000. So for this, to work out the average, the mean for the boys, it's going to be 1000, it's going to be 1000 divided by 40, which is going to give me £25. So here what we then need to do is to work out the estimate of the mean of the girls as a percentage of the mean of the girls. So what we need to just do here is 35 divided by 25 multiplied by 100, and typing that into the calculator. So 35 divided by 25 multiplied by 100, and that gives me an answer of 140%, which kind of makes sense because the girls' mean was greater than the boys'. Now for question 14, it says that Ali and Mel are making 3-digit codes. The digit 0 is not used. Ali only uses odd digits and Mel only uses even digits. And question 14a says that Ali can make X more codes than Mel. Assume that the digits cannot be repeated. Work out the value of X. So for here, the first thing we need to do is we'll look at the number of combinations. So here, the number of odd numbers is out of the single digits. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, the number of odd digits is 5. Then it becomes 4 because I can't use the first number, and then it becomes 3. So if I do 5 times 4 times 3, I get 60. Now for Mel, again, the number of even numbers there are is going to be 4. Then obviously I've used 1, so I've only got 3 left, and then used 2, so I've only got 2 left. And again, if I work that out, I then get 24. Then to work out the difference, which is X, equals, so 60 minus 24 equals X, and so X equals 36. Then moving on to question 14b, it says that in fact the digits can be repeated. What does this tell you about the actual value of X? And that if the numbers can be repeated, that means that the I'm going to be doing 5 times 5 times 5 and 4 times 4 times 4. So that means I'm going to get a bigger, or is it going to be bigger than my answer in part A? Now then, looking at question 15, it says here is a line L and the graph of y equals x minus 1. The scales of the axes are not shown, and the question is asking us to work out the value of L. Now, although the axes are not drawn, what I need to do first is label the axes. Now, looking at y equals x minus 1, this is going to be the y-intercept, so this is going to be minus 1. Now, whenever you're drawing a graph, it's always going to be the case of where the scales are going to be equally spaced. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Now here, to work out where the x-intercept is going to be, so the x-intercept is when y equals 0. So if y equals 0, I end up with x minus 1, so x equals 1. So what I've then got is that this is going to equal 1, and then what I've got is I've got spaces of 2. So this is going to be 2, and that's going to be 3. Now from this I can then work out the equation of L. So using y equals mx plus c, I can see that the y-intercept of line L is at 3, so c equals 3. So the next thing I've then got to do is just work out the gradient. Now to work out the gradient, what I've got to do is just draw a triangle. If I just use this right angle triangle, notice how it's got negative gradient. So for m, it's going to be the distance up, which is 3, over the distance across, which is 2, and because the line's going down, it's going to be minus 3 over 2. So the equation of line L is going to be minus 3 over 2 x plus 3. So for question 16, it says that ABC and ACD are triangles, and it says that the area of ACD is 80.5. Work out the area of ABC. So what we need to do is we need to work out the area of this triangle here. And this triangle here is 80.5. So the first thing we need to do is find A to C. Now we do that by working out the area of the triangle of ACD, which is 80.5 multiplied by the base, which equals the base, which is 14, times the length AC divided by 2. So then if I then rearrange this by multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 14, I get A to C, which is going to be equal to, and again getting the calculator out, just shift it to the side, so I've got 80.5 multiplied by 2 divided by 14 gives me an answer of 11.5. So this length here is 11.5. Now to work out the area of the triangle ABC, I don't know the perpendicular height of that triangle, so to work out the area of triangle ABC, I need to use the sine rule, or AB. I can write the equation out, so I need to use the formula of a half AB sine C. So labeling this, I've got that 36 is going to be C, 19 is going to be A, and B is going to be 11.5. So substituting numbers in, I get 0.5 multiplied by 19 multiplied by 11.5 multiplied by sine 36. And if I enter all of this into my calculator, I should get an answer of 64.2, and that's to 3 sig fig. Moving on to question 17, it says that m equals p minus 2b all over 2. P has been rounded to correct to 1 decimal place, and b has been rounded to correct to 1 decimal place. And the question is asking me to work out what the lower bound of m is going to be. Now, to get the smallest possible value of m, I need to get the numerator to be the smallest. So to get the smallest, when I've got p minus 2b, or to get the smallest possible answer, I need this to be small and this to be big. So if I look at the values of p in terms of the upper and lower bounds, so again to 1 decimal place, I'm just going to be adding and subtracting 0.05 to both these numbers. So I've got 68.3 plus or minus 0.05, and for 8.7, again, I'm going to be adding and subtracting 0.05. Now for p to be its smallest, what I'm going to be using is 68.25 minus 2 lots of b at its biggest value, which is going to be 8.75, and that's all divided by 2. So then if I put that into my calculator, let's have a look what I get. I've got fraction 68.25 minus 2 lots of 8.75, and that's all divided by 2. Press equals, and I get an answer of 25 and 375. Now looking at question 18, it says that in a bag there are blue discs, green discs and white discs, and it says that there are 4 times as many blue discs as there are green discs, and the number of blue discs to white discs is in the ratio 3 to 5. It says one disc is selected at random, work out the probability that the disc is either white or blue. Now to start this question off, what we need to do first is set up our ratios. So we've got blue, green and we've got white. Now reading the first bit of information, which says that there are 4 times as many blue discs as there are green discs, means that I've got a ratio of 4 to 1. Then reading the second bit of information, which says that the number of blue discs to number of white discs is 3 to 5. Now what I need to do here is to try and get the same number of blue discs. So treat this like simultaneous equations. If I multiplied this by 3 and this line by 4, then what do I get? Well, I'm going to get 12 to 3, and then on the second line I'm going to get 12 to 20. Now as you can see that I can then move that 3 down, so this now becomes the total frequencies in terms of the total ratios. So from this, if you imagine that in total, so now I've got a total of, and it's going to be 35 parts, and of those parts, how many are blue and white? Well, blue and white is going to be 32 out of 35, and that can't be simplified, so there is my final answer. For question 19, it says work out the area of the trapezium. Now for this, in order to work out the area of a trapezium, so let's just write down, oh, I don't know what's going on there. Let's just move up a little bit. So there we've got area of the trapezium is equal to a plus b times h divided by 2. So my first things first, I need to work out what h is, because a is 11 and b is 15. Now for this, what I'm going to need to do is use trigonometry. So for this, the difference between the two lengths is 4. So what I've got is I've got my triangle. This is 64, this is 4, and I need to work out what this length here is going to be. So using trigonometry, labelling the triangles, I've got the opposite, I've got the adjacent. So tan 64 equals x over 4, so x equals 4 multiplied by tan 64. Now if I just type that into my calculator, so 4 times tan 64, and that gives me an answer of 8.201. So here h equals 8.201. So then now I've got my 3 components. I can then substitute it into the formula. So the area is going to be equal to 11 plus 15 multiplied by 8.201. Let me just sort that 8 out, it's kind of a bit crazy. So 8.201 all divided by 2. So if I then get the calculator back out, I've already got that in, so I'm going to multiply that by, and then 11 plus 15 is 26, equals divided by 2, and it gives me an answer of 106.6 to 1 decimal place, so 106.6 to 1 dp. And let's just double check, make sure, no, it doesn't say anything about rounding. So the next question, question 20, says expressions for consecutive triangle numbers are given as shown. The question is asking us to prove that the sum of two consecutive triangle numbers is always a square number. Now the word sum means add. So what I need to do is add these two algebraic fractions together. So I've got n plus 1 over 2 plus n plus 1, n plus 2 all over 2. Now because I've got a common denominator, I can just simply add the two numerators together. So I've got n plus 1 plus n plus 1, n plus 2 all over 2. Now if I then expand the top and the numerator, so I'm going to go with n squared plus n plus, and then expand this quadratic, I get n squared plus 3n plus 2 all over 2. Then if I simplify the numerator, so I end up with 2n squared plus 4n plus 2 all divided by 2, and then simplify that further by taking 2's out, I end up with n squared plus 2n plus 1, which then automatically which I can factorize to give me n plus 1 squared. And as you can see here, that there is always going to be a square number, so therefore always a square number. So looking at question 21, it says that a solid shape is made by joining two cones. Each cone has the same radius, and one cone has the slant height of 2 times the radius, and the other one has the slant height of 3 times the radius. The total surface area of the shape is 57.8 pi in centimeters squared, and it's told us what the formula is to work out the surface area of the cone. So the first we need to do is, well, let's just label these. So this length here is equivalent to 2r, and this length here is equivalent of 3r. So to work out the total surface area, it's the surface area of the small cone plus the surface area of the big cone. So looking at the small cone and using that formula, well, it's going to be that the SA is going to equal pi times the radius, which is r, multiplied by the slanted height, which in this case is 2r. So that's going to give me 2r squared pi. Then for the big cone, that's going to be pi times the radius times 3r. So I've put 2 there, so let's just get that. 3r, which gives me 3r squared pi. Now if I add those two things together, that should come up to 57.8 pi centimeter squared. So looking at the space here, what I've got is I've got 5r squared pi equals 57.8 pi. And then I want to find out what r is, so I can first of all cancel out the pi's. Then I've got that r squared is going to equal 57.8 divided by 5, and so therefore r is going to equal the square root of 57.8 divided by 5. And again, if I put that into my calculator, so square root of 57.8 over 5, I get a radius of 3.4. Let's just check that. Moving on to question 22, it says show that 5 root 3 minus root 12 squared simplifies to give me an integer. So for this, what I need to recognise is that 5 root 3 minus root 12 squared is just a double bracket question. Now for this, you can do several things. You can simplify your root 12. So root 12 is going to be 2 root 3. in which I'd probably do that first. So, but again, it's not essential. So all I'm going to do is just swap root 12 for 2 root 3. And now all I'm going to do is use the loops. So I've got 5 root 3 times 5 root 3 is going to be 25 root 9 minus 10 root 9 minus 10 root 9 plus 4 root 9. Now root 9 is just 3. So then this then becomes 75 minus 30 minus 30 plus, and then that's going to be 2 times 3, 4 times 3 rather, which is 12. And then entering that all into our calculator, we get an answer of 27. So looking at question 23, it says A and B are similar cuboids. The surface area of A to the surface area of B is 16 to 25. Work out the volume of A to volume of B as a ratio. So here we've got area scale factor. Oh, I can spell it. So the area scale factor is 16 to 25. So that means then that the length scale factor is going to be the square root of those numbers, which is 4 to 5. And then the volume scale factor, which is going to be the cube of those. So the cube of 4 is 64. And the cube of 5 is 125. So the correct answer is going to be our third option. Now moving on to question 24, it says here is a sketch of y equals x squared plus 4x minus 12, and the question is asking us to work out the values of x for which x squared plus 4x minus 12 is less than 0. And it says give your answer as an inequality. Now the first thing we need to do is find out what these 2 points here are. Now to find those points, what I need to do is factorize and solve 4x squared minus x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Now that does factorize to give me 6 and 2, in which I've got plus and minus equals 0. So x equals minus 6 or x equals positive 2. So looking at this and labeling the graph, that's got to equal 2, that's got to equal minus 6. Now the question is asking me for the areas of x where the curve is below the y-axis. So I'm looking for this region here. Now to get that region there, x needs to be between 6, minus 6 and 2. And I'm not going to put an equal sign because there is no equal sign in the question. So looking at question 25, it says the sample of 50 eggs taken from farm A is shown in the table below, and the sample of 50 eggs from farm B is shown in the histogram. And the question is asking us that medium eggs are between 53 grams and 63 grams. From farm A has more medium eggs than farm B, and we need to show how many more farm A has more than farm B. So looking at the data, we can see that medium eggs of farm A is going to be included by adding these two frequencies together. So farm A is going to have 19 plus 8, which is 27. So let's just start by writing that out. So farm A has 28 medium eggs. Actually, it's not 28, it is 28. So now what we need to do is work out what the area, what this range is. Now 53 on the histogram is here, and 63 is here. Now what I need to do to work out the number of eggs that fall within there, I need to work out the area of these two rectangles that I am now highlighting. Because in a histogram, area is related to frequency. So here, if I look at the area of the orange rectangle, then that's going to be 2 times the frequency density of that one, which is 1, so that gives me 2. Now if I then work out the area of the blue rectangle, then that's going to be 8 times by the frequency density for that bar, which is 2, which gives me 16. So added together gives me 18. So that means that farm B rather, has 18 medium eggs. So in terms of the difference, what's the difference between 27 and 18? It's going to be 9. So looking at question 26, it says that we need to work out the values of integers a, b and c. Now this question relates to comparing coefficients. Now the first thing we want to do is expand this left hand side out first. So here, if I expand that out, if I expand the first two brackets and just take one bracket at a time, I'm going to end up with x squared plus 7x plus 10, and that's being multiplied by x plus a. Now if I then expand this out, what I end up with is x cubed plus ax squared plus 7x squared plus 7ax plus 10x plus 10a. Now neatening all of this up, what I end up with is x cubed, and then I'm going to end up with, looking at the coefficients of x squared, well that's going to be plus 7 plus ax squared plus, and then looking at the coefficients of x, that's going to be 7a plus 10x plus 10a. Now if I then combine that to the right hand side, so this here, what I end up is with x cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 30. Now comparing the coefficients of this, looking at the a first, well if 10a equals minus 30, then a is going to equal minus 3. So a equals minus 3. Then to work out b, what I need to use is use this. So 7 plus a equals b. With a equals minus 3, I've got 7 minus 3, which is 4. And then to work out c, what I then need to do is, the colour I've not used, so let's go for green. That's 7a plus 10 equals c. So if a equals minus 3, that's going to give me minus 21 plus 10 equals c. So c equals, and that's going to give me 10 equals, plus 10 equals minus 11. And there are my three coefficients. Then moving on to our very last question. So question 27 involves functions. So the question is asking if f of x is 2x over 5 minus 1, work out the value of the inverse function of 3 plus f of 0.5. So first of all, let's work out f of minus half. So if this, all I need to do is substitute x equals minus half into the function of f of x. So that's 2 lots of minus 0.5 divided by 5 minus 1. And if I get the calculator out, I get 2 minus 0.5 over 5, and subtract 1, and I get an answer of minus 6 over 5. Now for the next one, to work out the inverse function, what I need to do is work out what the formula for the inverse function is actually going to be. So let me just quickly go through the notions. So again, make the function equal to y. And then what I then want to do is make x the subject. So I've got y plus 1 equals 2x over 5. I've then got 5y plus 5 equals 2x. And then 5y plus 5 over 2 equals x. So the inverse function of x is going to equal 5x plus 5 over 2. So then what I then want to do is then substitute that in. So let me just write that a little bit neater. I've got 5x plus 5 over 2, and then the inverse function of 3 is, I just substitute 3 in, so I've got 15 plus 5 over 2, which equals 10. So then what I want to do is 10 plus minus 6 over 5, and again, just to make sure, let's just type that into our calculator to work it out. So I've got 10 plus, and then minus 6 over 5, which gives me an answer of 44 over 5, or 8.8. Let me just double check to make sure that that was correct. Yes, it is. And there is our completed paper. Now we'll put the grade boundaries in the description below for you to see what your total marks for this individual paper would have been.